Okay, so welcome back. I have the other 1809 Peninsular campaign core game that I promised. This one was between RHB and EC. The game was a friendly because they had a couple different subs. One was a solid player, and then one was a complete random. We didn't want it to count because they were playing basically against our clan stack with a person that they didn't know. This game was fairly low points, and we decided that we wanted to try something where we took Wellesy even though we were playing a low point game. Typically, you wouldn't bring Wellesy because you would need sort of like an infantry screen to get the most out of him. That way the smaller UK units aren't in the line of fire and the Spanish can take some of the shots while you flank and delete the flanks with the UK infantry. We wanted to see how it would go if you brought Wellesy, but also brought small Spanish armies. We have Blake and Tessera. Technically this isn't Spanish, but those are our two quote-unquote infantry corps. And then we also brought a Venegas reserve again. This time we did a Cav reserve and part of the guard. I don't recall the French corps, but it'll be in the description. I think the points were only like 32. So they had a better point distribution, obviously, because they don't have a 13-pointer, and I think they brought mostly like the mid points with a 110-pointer, which I think is this one right here. The map is Spain 1B. The B variant has a little bit more of an interesting deployment than the A one. Coalitions sometimes get this lock first. Imperial usually get these two lock first, and then it's a fight to see if you want to open up this flank over here, or if you want to attack this hillside here. This is a pretty good position for Imperial, other than the fact that these are ruins houses. Ruins are really easy to shoot down because there's no walls protecting, so in theory if you have units all around it, it'll be able to shoot into the house, and same with this one. For my army, I brought a variety of different units. I put my L4s with my sort of like grenadier-y-ish or melee troops on this flank because I had a feeling I might be pushing this house. And then I put my slower troops on the road, but also with my L5s. And the plan was to get my L5s up the road quickly as possible to support the Spanish here in the center. Just real quick, obviously you can see scouting here. This is basically a full French corps, lots of good 8-pounders. We do get to the house first, but it is a little scary to know that there's a full French army here, a full French army here, and then another one coming down the road. So we know that there's 3 armies converging on this one pointer. This army appears to be shifting this way. At this point, we probably shouldn't have even bothered contesting this house. At least not as forward as they are, because in reality it's a fairly questionable army to be able to hold with. He has some okay infantry and grenadiers and things, but you're still going to be a 6-pointer against 3 French corps, and your only support is going to be a Venegas Cav corps with some horse guns. Meanwhile, it would have probably opened us to attack here, or maybe I should have shifted here. It's not quite clear at this point, but it is a scary thought to have 3 corps here. When you have this type of scouting knowledge, you should probably not advance. At best, you get the house, and you fall back to somewhere around here, and then maybe leave like 1 or 2 units that can shoot and escape, that can hold the front of the house. So you want to make sure that any unit that runs in, you can shoot, or maybe counterattack, and then maybe do scrim screen, and then guns on the road or back here, shooting down the road as they come up. This game we also didn't have really an overall command. It was more of a, since it was a friendly, we just kind of went with our chaos play, as we call it, where each of us kind of fight somewhat independently, but together. with a general idea, and the general idea was to push this side of the map. We successfully pushed back the French cav over here, despite having not necessarily the best cav situation. And me seeing that the 10-pointer up here was slightly out of position and coming this way, I kind of wanted to shore up this section here. So I actually moved quickly off the road, started directing my L3s into this center area, hoping that I might be able to actually ambush them as they come down this way. Again, Spain here is probably too far forward. It's easy to say in hindsight, but it is... You basically have an open flank coming out this direction, and there's French on your flank, looking down this way. So, not to mention like a full corps coming down this road here that we have now scouted. So you're about to have 2 corps slamming into your flank this way, there's a corps pinning you this way, and then a 10-pointer that's attached, but now moving backwards on over here. We told Venegas to bring his cav reserve to the center, because that's where we wanted it, while leaving a slight screen to be able to support the 6-pointer. The French get a really nice hill here for 8-pounders, and in general, the 1809 Peninsular Corps have fairly affordable and good quality artillery. Because of our composition, we actually don't have that many guns, but we do have quality infantry in this form of Wallasey. Cav, we decided we needed Venegas for the Cav because otherwise we would be kind of light overall. The thing with the French Peninsular Corps is they also have excellent dragoons and light cav versus the fairly mediocre Spanish cav. With that being said, you know, if you have like 7 heavies supported by Wallasey, then you might be able to do something with them. In my opinion, at least one of the points of Wallasey's 13 points is Wallasey himself, because he offers stars to not only the British units, but the Spanish units as well. So this flank is still a little bit open. We do have scouting ability, and there's some nice guns here, but it is, again, very concerning the amount of mass that's probably going to appear and quickly appear on this road. You're also somewhat shooting uphill. Over here, my plan was, again, basically just walk through this 10-pointer. Because he was split on both sides, the hope was that the 4-pointer would be able to tie up this flank while I can just overwhelm his center army with what I have here. And he didn't have exactly the full picture of what I had coming at him, and I was trying to use my L5s here on the flank to get some really good shooting as he extends. Pretty good cap charge here to get these scrims. Nicely done. Good catch by Venegas. And you can see how well with the British shooting, like, these guys have been moving into position this whole time, and I've been just shooting them down. We already routed 1 unit. Yeah, 0 losses for 2 scrims is a really good play. At this point, Spain should be in full retreat. You can see a full army here. We got some nice hits on this cav with artillery and infantry. and we're coming up. I'm trying to push this house as quickly as I can while I have them in a bind here. This light infantry completely outflanking the Spanish in a classic, like, sort of French maneuver. Retreating in front of L5s is always difficult, especially when they have like 96 accuracy or whatever, or 96 reload. You can see this is my L3 brigade. Skirmishers I try to put in between so that they're more or less protected. The cav has to retreat at this point. There's not much that they're going to be able to do against this fresh French army. And I'm trying to pursue. I attack the house with my G4s, one unit going in and one attacking the outside. The problem is Wellesley is all the way over here. This is a mistake. If you're going to attack a house, always have your general nearby. I realized he's too far away, way too late, and he's going to have to run through all this slowing terrain, and my unit redlined literally going into the house, which is unfortunate because this is my highest melee attack infantry that I have. They're giving me a line fight, which is what I want. The French are about to make a very decisive attack here. Supported by guns, huge amount of reserves. I mean, you just can literally like walk forward and shake off any shooting. Try not to do that. This is the Spanish Guard again.
We have taken the building, sir.
So I managed to get the building after lots of suffering. Pushing the second building here. And starting to sort of engage in a line fight here. Fortunate for my KGL scrims. Sorry, I'll go back to my stuff over here. So the French have basically ruptured the front of the Spanish line. Dragoons and things like that being thrown in to counter. This infantry was countered by the Guard, but you know, it's only 3 battalions and some cav. But this is more concerning in the fact that there's not much that you can do to save that. I routed one cav after he routed my scrim. And I'm trying to take this house. Texiera is extending out, and they're going to shift some reserves to try and hold that. But overall, you know, we just had our 6-pointer is going to be evaporated here soon. Cav caught one of the Guard infantry.
Our men are running, sir.
This unit is like a filler, generally speaking. I didn't take the house again. This time I have Wellesley here, but these houses are quite hard to take from fresh French troops. This is more or less a fairly desperate action now to try and inflict as many casualties as you can. This is a good flanking shot here. But now he's free to get flanked himself. And all of this routing Spanish line is stopping this unit from even shooting anything that's coming up. Started rotating units around. I brought some guns up point blank to make sure that I could start hammering at this French line. Swapped in my slower L3s that have better shooting stats. Well, on average, better shooting stats.
Our men are running, sir.
I accidentally kill my own skirmishers here, which is what it is. So, knowing that this flank is falling apart, means that I'm gonna have to really push and win completely on this side, which is why I was pushing so hard for these houses. Typically I don't try this hard to get houses early on, especially if they're fresh units near them. So the French took very few losses overall.
Our men are running,
no
sir.
units routed, but you know, they took a certain amount of losses. My cav gets caught here, which was unfortunate, especially since they're my only good light cav. And I tried to go in over here, but it's honestly, like, again, hard to counter with light cav. I do manage to get this cav away, and it gets engaged by this mediocre Spanish light, but it actually almost routes it, and it does it finally, especially with the L3 supporting. This army is basically dead. We gotta pull back what we can over here and salvage it. In this case, his guns are open. Gave me a good opportunity to take out all of these 8-pounders. It is unfortunate because I kind of need the light cav, but the 8-pounders were also in my way. We managed to take out some cav over here. My guns forced these units to retreat, not to mention the quality light or regular British lines just chewing through this infantry here.
Our men are
Trying to
running,
save my
sir.
cav with some shooting, but it just wasn't enough. So now I have a full corps basically coming up behind me. Venegas cav corps is here. This infantry is ready to break. If the cav was a little bit closer, they could go in right now and we could probably rout them in entirety. That should be Blade. Oh, it's not. It's Tessiera. Excellent light cav behind the Tessiera's lines here. My unit was still attacking that unit when it was pulling back, and it got charged, unfortunately. And I'm still trying to open up this house. The vein openers, I think, have 17 melee.
This building has fallen to the enemy.
Just unfortunate that they can't seem to win. So I can tell that, you know, this center is not going to be able to square, and I called for Venegas cav to help me break it through. That's where it's coming from. There's going to be pretty much no possibility of a delaying action back here. Like, this is too much infantry to try and hold back. So again, our only hope is to just break through here. A bit of a gamble to try and charge in those types of units at this early of a, well, like against this fresh British line still. The Black Cuff's still holding on. It's a good melee unit. It lost a lot of units because I mismicroed it. Tessiera getting in with Grenadiers. Really nice charge here. And these units are actually enfilade to artillery. Yeah, nice shot there. And this whole area looks like it's about to crumble. I get him with the cheap cav here. Venegas could be fully attacking right now. Whenever you see infantry turn around like this, and you have cav within, like, running range, always charge it down if you can. Because when they're turned around, you can't shoot them. Like, they're not going to be able to shoot you. But you can just run them down. I misclicked, and that's why my cav went into the way of the Spanish cav there. And yeah, that's weakened French lines. Even Spanish heavy cav will rout. So we're trying to wrap this up as quickly as we can so that we can turn around and face this looming threat. There is Venegas still here on the flank. with the guard infantry. These units could probably wrap these guys up if they needed to. A couple squares here, but I have quite good shooting
We have
infantry
killed
close
their
by.
general, sir. Now they must break.
General got charged by friendlies and died. You can't kill your friendly general like that. I still don't own this house. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough light cav, really, to pursue this any further before we had to turn back around. I would have liked to have had maybe one more light cav to just harass as we go, because the C3s just don't hold up well enough over a long period. But now we do have to turn around and face this threat. Luckily, I already had some decent line here ready to go. Nice charge by the French here. So this army is in full retreat. Teixeira is going to be able to, like, more or less contain him with what he has available here. And his infantry is actually quite decent overall, quality-wise. He went for, I think it's like the elite division, quote-unquote elite. The other divisions are all like militia, basically. So knowing that we haven't finished this, but we have this bigger threat behind us, we turned around to face it.
Our men are running, sir.
My guns unfortunately died there. Not much you can do. I almost kill Wellington with friendly fire, which would have been basically game over at that point. This is also worrying. It's like two huge French dragoons rear charging us, and this unit, for whatever reason, wasn't able to square anymore, and only this unit would.
Our men are running, sir.
And this one was too small to square at that time. So there's two things going on. One pinning attack to wrap up this flank because we're caught in between two armies. More cav coming in behind us, while the French have free reign to attack us here. In most circumstances, we would be dead. For sure. There's like no way that you can have an army in your back and an army in your front while your flank is collapsing. The French have us completely surrounded. But this infantry over here is actually putting in some good work against the remnants of the army behind us. The C3s are able to catch what was behind us, and we have enough UK infantry still alive to kind of make something happen maybe here. They come for the house over here, for both houses actually. I have some KGL light infantry, or light foot, to basically ping pong them between the two houses. My plan was, if you're shooting from this house and this house, and then you can shoot the guys outside of the house on this corner, then maybe we could break them up and start routing them there. Without his general, his infantry is starting to wear down enough. Heavy cav going in for one more counterattack. Of course, it catches probably the only remaining square and gets an unlucky volley against it. The French are in melee with us over here. And again,
our men are running, sir.
I try to stack debuffs on houses, so if you can like route units that are nearby the units that are routing or attacking the house, they'll get the friendlies routing debuffs, and you'll be able to do a little bit more. So this flank is completely collapsed. We did a good job of inflicting decent losses, but not enough over here. It's another general killed. He died over here. The guard is over here coming up behind. Spanish cav is making it difficult for the micro here by attacking the French rear. More of my lines are coming up to put fire into the houses. the French are actually pulling backwards because
Our men are
they're
running,
losing
sir.
too much for the house at this point. This army starts to actually rally, which is good for us, because we need every man we can get at this point. They actually took the house from me, but I charge in to the house and charge the units out of the house to try and get it back. The Brits actually have quite good base
The
melee,
entire unit is dead, sir.
and if you have Wellesley nearby, you get enough morale bonus to hold. What they aren't good at is melee defense, typically. I think it's like the historical method for UK infantry for fighting was to deliver like really crisp shock volleys at point blank range and then close with bayonets. That's generally like why their stats are portrayed the way that they are. So we actually won this engagement initially.
Our men
At
are
least
running, sir.
somewhat. They shot me out of the house. As I mentioned before, this house is really easy to shoot out of. They should have immediately garrisoned it, though. The guns do get charged here, it looks like. Always try to, like, do something like this. If you see people are gonna melee you, get units on the flanks or like pulled back away that can counterattack. We still have a French army here. This army is completely shifted over onto this side, which is good for us. I have my L5s basically at this wall, shooting at them as they're retreating.
This building has fallen to the enemy.
And they finally garrisoned this house. Wellesley's a little bit exposed here. Nice heavy cap charge. Just unfortunate that there's friendlies fleeing in the area. He almost kills the general on the impact because heavy cav will have enough impact to carry through the lines sometimes. If his general had died there, it would have been really nice. That's our whole army probably would have collapsed. And now I managed to get into the house against these tired units. And again, this is where having Wellesley nearby is nice. And I'm trying to shoot the units outside of the house. So if you notice, we've actually rotated the map like 3 times. There was the flank attack here. Now they've gone all the way around here, and we're actually almost on the French side of the map.
We have taken a
facing this
building,
way.
sir.
So I got the unit back, or house back. I think this is Polish infantry? Someone will probably correct me. I'm not that great with uniforms, but I believe that's a Polish line. And those generally have pretty good melee stats. This side has been broken up now. Tired French lines that are below half strength, you know, you can start breaking them up pretty quickly. That's the key for Coalition, is to get the French to a point where you can actually provide shock damage. Now they're going to try and push this area here while they're coming down this way to come up on our flank there. I kind of misread this and I advanced to try and break this flank before this units could get to us, but I definitely misread how fast the French were going to be able to redeploy. I should have pulled back along this way way sooner, because now I have to run a gauntlet between 2 French corps, and my units are going to get shot at the entire time. These horse guns we had brought for flexibility, but the map ended up not being really conducive to them, especially considering the terrain we were fighting around, which is like this big croppy hill, and the fact that both armies were fairly fluid the entire time. This is a terrible misplay. letting my basically fresh young buffs get rear charged and instantly routed. Losing this much stuff here was really painful, but the Spanish Guard is here, and I support them with these L5s here, or L4s. And this army is more or less, I think, repositioning to attack Texeira to finish him off.
Our men are running, sir.
Nice countercharge with the heavy cav. Guard infantry surviving. Fortunately it breaks because I guess it got one volley put into it while it was close to low morale, despite having Wellesey close by. We can't really stop them from destroying our ally here. We're too slow and not enough manpower to like really counterattack with, at least in a rearguard action, but I still want to kind of pinch them between. So I took my L5s and put my L4s into a screening position. Even though this looks like a lot of these units are probably at half strength or lower, and they're having to attack into shooting infantry now. I mean, these units broke apart from basically 1 or 2 volleys. But these guys are definitely going to make contact. I ran Wellesey over because I knew that Texeira's general was dead, and I was going to try and use the stars to keep his men fighting. If you aren't familiar, you actually get half the stars of whatever it is that of allied gens if they're nearby, and they're higher than whatever you have. I accidentally put Wellesey into the charging path of Venegas, but luckily he didn't run me over. And screening over on this side to try and make sure that we aren't going to get completely annihilated. Just pin that flank so we can finish off this core here. This unit manages to square somehow, and that wraps up that heavy cav. But in general, the French are leading units that are their attacking power, more or less. We still have some defense ability, basically, with the heavy cav, or sorry, the horse guns here. We still have some guard infantry. I have my L5s, and most importantly, we still have Wellesey, and we have 2 buildings to kind of focus around. At this point, we actually do still have lock because we have the 2-pointer here in the back, and then the double 1-pointers here. So the French are obligated to attack us. You just saw there what happens to infantry when it goes up against the guard at point blank. 135 men with 27 or 28 accuracy. You won't be able to stand very long with these small French, like depleted French lines. We probably need to kill their gens. That would be game over for these armies. They'd probably completely collapse without having any stars behind them. The French are shooting slightly uphill, and we're shooting slightly downhill, so that's good for us in terms of positioning. One of the guard came back, which is good for us again. Skirmishers are good for this type of engagement as well. Fortunately, they're tired, so they won't be as effective. Managing the state of your units, whether they're tired, fresh, whatever, is really important. Very tired and things along those lines have a, I think it's like 50% debuff on all stats. So if they have like 28 accuracy or something, they are only going to have half of that. Or if they have like high reload, then their reload will actually be half. We were trying to get the guns. I personally think trying to get the gens would have been the bigger move, but it would be hard because the gens are in between the infantry. So there's not a guarantee that you'd be able to get Soul or something like that. But if we did kill the French gens at this point, like I said, these units are barely holding together as it is. Surprisingly close game overall. I mean, this is all the French have left, and we have this here, a couple guard, cav, and then one L3 behind them. With a fresh guard unit like this in the fray, you know, if we can support him long enough for it to do some more damage to these really understrength units, then we're actually in a good place. The problem is they're falling back to their 8-pounders that they still have alive, and we do not have the mass remaining to be able to support or take out guns like that. I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward just a little bit because there's not much going on. This is like both sides know that we're exhausted completely, and you have to kind of figure out what to do next. We know that we have lock, as mentioned before. We don't want them to withdraw and then go attack our remaining 1-pointer there. At the same time, we can't really pursue because I have a grand total of 3 units. Venegas has 2 or 3, plus the horse guns, and Blake has the skirmisher. So, you know, we don't have a lot left in the basket. I got them to commit, coming back. We managed to break a couple units here. Good old L5s. They realize that it's probably not worth it. Better just to sacrifice these units than to try and wait. I try to shoot these units from behind while debuffing them from the front. I was actually trying to close for melee with them, just to get that final blow, basically. The guard has this funny ruins that they're going to try and use to shoot down the artillery crew. Or at least keep them busy, while my infantry tries to pull off a miracle over here. I broke all of that infantry, as you see. But it's going to have to be a fighting retreat. If these horse guns were maybe like right here, we could probably win this game. Because they moved from here, he recentered him over here, and then moved him back to like this side. Really, they just need to be shooting more than anything. Even if the position's not great. Not great positioning, but still inflicting losses is better than perfect positioning and not shooting at all. So the French have decided that they're going to make one more attack. And we can just follow it through. Again, if we had killed their gens, this attack is not even going to be possible, but... We're holding these houses with units that are well below half strength. This is a 29 of 106, and this is 21 of 93. That's not great for holding a house. One volley into there by French infantry will probably rout it out of the house. Maybe if the guard was up against this wall here. We are getting flanked. And the guard would have to fight like 6 units. This one is fresh, but we were still worried about them pushing the rear. If you have a house like this and it's not a lot of men, you can move the unit around in the house to try to get them
Our men are running,
to the
sir.
shooting position where they can actually see through the doors and stuff. Sometimes they'll be on the opposite side of the house, or sometimes they'll be over here. So you gotta kind of like reposition them in a way that it'll maintain them. Debuffing from being able to shoot out of the house still, like against these weakened units, is enough to be able to like do some damage and counter with. Though at this point,
Our men are running, sir.
my units are not going to be able to hold up very long because of how small they are. These horse guns would have been nice, like right here probably.
Our men are running, sir.
The guard accidentally goes out of the house. That's the downside of trying to do any sort of, what's it called? Any sort of shooting
men
order.
are running, sir.
There's always a chance it'll leave the house instead of actually fighting for the house. And that pretty much is our death nail there. I think the cav probably could have killed the gens. If it had, then again this army would have broken up. But that's pretty much it. I mean, we won't be able to get... We no longer have lock. We lost both houses, and we have no infantry left. You saw how fast these guns just ripped through this line. Well, he's getting shot from inside the house, but I mean, the game's over at this point. I'll go and fast forward to the end. Overall, kind of an interesting game. We went with a couple different ideas of how to play it. Lots of maneuver.
Our men are running, sir.
Lots of small things maybe the coalition could have done better. Maybe if this side had held back a little bit further, or we didn't push this side at the beginning and actually defended on this side, and they ran into Wellesley instead of just an unsupported Blake, then, you know, we could have chewed up these 3 cores. But we saw an opening to attack on this side, just maybe lost a little too much. Losing Tetsierra's gen to the Chambouillon, and then not having maybe enough guns at the end and things along those lines. But overall, pretty close game. You can see how little the French have left. When you see like a full army collapse as quickly as we did on the left here, and how much infantry they had moving across while still having basically 2 intact cores right here, this game looked done. Especially with, you know, us extending out this way, caught between both armies, getting rear charged by dragoons while getting frontally attacked by infantry. But that's honestly the power of having a lot of stars, and then also really high accuracy units and high reload. They can just stand there and be able to flip back and forth and hold the ground that they need to. And the UK infantry has enough melee that if you get into melee, they can, you know, it's a roll of the dice for the French. It could be a 10 melee attack unit, it could be a 17 melee attack unit. And if you countercharge and get the French early on and support it with Wellesley, then there's a chance that you'll shock the French infantry into routing before before you. You can see on the side of it. Oh, never mind. But you know, pretty vicious attacks all across the board. The French maybe could have committed to just attacking the houses, but you saw what happens when they did. I will try to do the stats somewhere. Yeah, this is my replay, so you can see how well my L5s did there. I like L5s because they're not only speedy, but generally they have good shooting, especially for Coalition, and you can really abuse it and get lots and lots of damage. Pin with your L3s, flank with your L5s. Make sure that they can melt infantry as you go along. But thanks for watching.